coming. I cannot tell you. Thank you so much.
The whole festival, this is the best moment by far. It's also our first movie produced. So.
Yeah, we've been writing movies for 11 years, and this is the first.
Well, I know, just before we get into it, I know you guys wanted to say something about how and why you are able to be here tonight, given the strikes going on and how important that message of solidarity is. So,
yes, so I seem to have the only consistently working microphone, so I'll just do all the talking tonight. Lauren and I are here in our capacity as producers of the movie. We are also writers and the writers of the film, and in solidarity with our guild, we are on strike. We have decided that we have this platform. We've never had a platform before. We have this platform and we're going to use it to amplify the message of our guild. You guys have just watched a movie about how the system is rigged. It's rigged on Wall Street and it's rigged in Hollywood. The only path toward fairness is transparency. That's the message of our movie, and that's what we're fighting so hard for in Hollywood right now.
So, you guys have mentioned this is your first film, but I think that everyone would probably love to hear a little bit about your background, because it is very interesting the way that it applies to the story that you're telling.
So we met as reporters for the Wall Street Journal, and 15 years ago, and became a writing partnership about 11 years ago, and then wrote for television and wrote many movies that did not get made, and executive produced many films didn't get made. And so this is really, we did a lot of our own research for this movie as well as write it.
So when this was going on, obviously there were a few other things happening in the world, but can you remind, what was it like the first time that you heard this story and you're like, that's an interesting story, that could be a movie?
I mean, we heard of it and followed it for a while before it occurred to us. An interesting movie. I'm just gonna put this one down and we'll trade. I think we encountered the story as just lay people watching it on the news and reading about it in newspapers. Welcome. And I think we were like, what's going on? GameStop? That story used to shop bad in the 90s? That's weird. And then once we got a little deeper into it, and then Hollywood went crazy for the story, almost instantly there were 9 competing projects. And one of those came our way, really with the treatment for our book by Ben Mesrick, who's a great writer, great journalist. He wrote the book that The Social Network was based on, among many other great books. And it was then when we started to really dig into it and get to know the actual people involved in this phenomenon that we realized that this transcended the sort of story of the week quality that we worry a lot of these stories have, and in fact became something so much bigger, so much more profound, so much more human. It became the kind of story that could really tell us about why we are where we are as a culture and as a society, and could maybe give us a little bit of a blueprint that feels more hopeful than most of what's out there.
Just to add to that, I think when we started watching videos of Roaring Kitty, we were instantly captivated by him as a character. He's so unusual, as you've seen, but also he had this message that seemed to resonate with so many people, and we started to examine why, and we had this curiosity about that. And we realized that, yes, he was talking about this GameStop store and, the ins and outs of its quarterly reports and all these financial details. But what he was really saying was asking this question about value in society, right? And who says the value of a store, of a life? Is it the 1%, or does everyone have a say in that? And that was really resonant with us and felt like a really worthwhile message to write about.
So obviously you have many different characters in this film that are all based on real people. Keith Gill, Roaring Kitty, is the center of it. At what point did you realize he needs to be the center of it? And can we also talk about developing these incredible other characters, these real people who are just out there and part of this?
I mean, yes, no, hello.
It's working.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay.
No, it's not.
No.
true partnership right here.
Two unworking microphones. We'll just share it like a straw at a soda fountain, a milkshake. Keith always had to be the center of the story. He's incredible and weird and brilliant and totally singular as a character. Lauren and I had, we have a keen interest in social media driven populism. It's always been a storyline that we gravitate toward. It, to us, is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful forces in the world right now. It's also one of the least cinematic. It's the hardest to render on screen because, yeah, it's like that for the most part. So we've followed a lot of those other stories and tried to tell at least one political version in the past. And so we kind of had a working cinematic language that we were playing around with for how to create emotional relationships, how to create the stakes, how to make it feel fast and urgent and convey the passion when people are just sitting at their computers. Do you want to?
Oh, yeah. And in terms of the ensemble, we knew, we started sort of interviewing people who had bought GameStop. We were struck by the kind of diversity of people who bought into this and were part of this movement. And, there were people who were truck drivers, there were college kids, there were people who were mothers of 4. And so we wanted to really include a very diverse ensemble. And we also wanted to have a character who actually brought the audience into a GameStop store and really let you live in that and see the joy of that store. And we were lucky Ryan Cohn let us film in a real GameStop store in New Jersey. And so it was great to actually have, be in the real place for this. I think without that, the movie would feel very different.
Were there characters that you wanted to include that you weren't able to? I think watching it, I gravitate so much to the college girls. Like they're so interesting and funny and real, but I wonder if there was anyone that you were like, there's just no room.
So many people.
Yeah, lots of people. We started the process by just like wading deep into Reddit and getting to know the world of Wall Street's bets and later now Super Stonk. But the Wall Street Bets community, was so like fascinating, and we just read the post, reached out to people, talked to people, heard their own experiences, and I think if you were watching the news at the time, if you were watching CNBC, you would have come away with like a pretty flat, pretty stereotypical view of the people populating those message boards, and that was so different from what we encountered. Every diversity in every sense of the word, obviously racial, socioeconomic, global, geographic, people all around the world, people young, people old, and then also people who are very, very smart, totally self-taught, and then also people who have advanced degrees in economics. So it was a community so vast that we were never going to get our arms fully around it, but we tried our best to find, I guess we were looking for the most emotional stories, because this had to be kind of a human emotional piece before anything else. And we ended up combining a few stories, taking some highlights, and we were always going to have to leave some stuff on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, I was going to say the film would be 10 hours long. It could include everything we wanted to include, but I think also we're compared to films like The Big Short and Wolf of Wall Street, but we really wanted to have this film was really about a movement that was by the people for the people, and those films have this top-down approach, and I think to us we really wanted to locate the point of view in the retail traders. Obviously you see the Wall Street guys as well, but it was really a story that was about retail, what they did coming together around this stock.
Well, I'm so happy we can talk about spoilers because everyone has just seen it. One of the things that